The night was cold on the alien world, a place filled with tall silver trees and glowing flowers. But the little alien girl sat alone on a rock, her arms hugging her small knees. She was different from the others, smaller than her own kind, and everyone in her tribe called her a mistake. Her people were tall, strong, and powerful, but she was only half their size. They laughed at her, they mocked her, and when they walked past, they did not even look at her. Her name was Lyra, but they rarely used it. They called her Minnie, like she was some broken toy. The tribe had moved to a new home near the river, and the leaders told her she was too small to help carry food, too weak to fight predators, and too slow to march with the group. That day when the tribe set out to hunt, they left her behind without a single word. She tried to smile when they were gone. She whispered to herself that maybe it was better this way. Maybe the silence would be kinder than their cruel voices. But when the sky turned dark purple and the second moon rose, fear grew heavy in her heart. The forest came alive at night. Strange noises echoed through the trees, low growls, wings flapping, and the sound of branches snapping. Lyra pulled her thin blanket around her shoulders and shivered. She thought of the times she had tried to fit in. Once she brought fruit to the tribe, but they threw it away, saying it was too small to matter. Once she tried to join in a dance, but they laughed and pushed her down. Every memory burned inside her chest like fire. She wanted to cry, but she bit her lip. Tears would only prove she was weak. The wind carried the smell of ash from the far mountains, and her sharp ears picked up movement nearby. She froze. The sound came again, heavy steps, slow and careful, not like the quick run of small animals. Her heart pounded and her claws dug into the rock she sat on. Maybe it was a predator. Maybe tonight would be her last night. The tribe would not care if she vanished. In fact, some of them would probably cheer. She closed her eyes, whispering to herself, "Be brave, Lyra, just be brave." The sound grew closer, branches cracking under the weight of something large. She rose to her feet, trembling but ready to run. Suddenly, from the shadow of the trees, a figure stepped into the moonlight. It was not one of her kind. It was tall, but not like the others. Its body was shaped differently, lean but strong, and its skin was pale compared to her people's dark scales. It had strange cloth wrapped around its body, and in one hand it carried a long stick of wood. Its face was strange too, smooth, no ridges, no scales. Two eyes glowed faintly in the moonlight, locked on her. A human. Lyra had heard stories of humans. Some of her people said they were dangerous, liars who could not be trusted. Others said humans were weak, strange creatures from a far-off world. But none of the stories matched what she saw now. This human did not look cruel. He looked tired, like someone who had walked too far and carried too many burdens. The human paused, as surprised as she was. His lips moved, but the words meant nothing to her ears. She stepped back, afraid. He raised his empty hand slowly, palm open, as if to say he meant no harm. For a moment, the night went silent. Only the two of them existed in that small clearing, the outcast alien girl and the lonely human traveler. But silence did not last. A growl ripped through the trees. Both of them turned their heads sharply. From the dark came glowing yellow eyes, low to the ground but moving fast. The sound of claws scraping against the earth grew louder. More eyes appeared behind the first. A pack of hunters. Lyra's heart stopped. She had seen these creatures before. Night beasts, predators that hunted anything smaller than them. She had escaped once by climbing a tree, but tonight she was too far from safety. She backed away, but there were too many eyes, too many growls. The human stepped in front of her. He gripped his wooden stick with both hands, his shoulders tense, his eyes fixed on the beasts. Lyra blinked in shock. No one had ever stood in front of her before. Not once in her life. The beasts crept closer, circling, their teeth flashing in the moonlight. Lyra could smell their hot breath, mixed with blood from their last kill. She pressed her back against the rock, clutching her blanket, trembling all over. The human did not move aside. He raised his stick and shouted something in his strange voice, loud and strong. The sound startled the beasts, making them pause for a heartbeat. In that moment, Lyra saw something in him, courage. Real courage. The kind she had never seen in her own kind. Her chest tightened. For the first time, she wondered. Maybe being abandoned was not the end of her story. Maybe fate had left her behind for another reason. The growls rose again. The beasts crouched, ready to strike. Lyra's claws shook and the human tightened his grip. The night was about to decide if either of them would live. And for the first time in her small, lonely life, Lyra did not feel completely alone. The beasts did not wait long. Their yellow eyes flashed as they moved through the grass, circling around the human and the little alien girl. Lyra's breath came fast and shaky. Her claws dug into the rock behind her. She whispered to herself, "Not like this. Not tonight." The human raised his stick higher. His eyes never left the shadows where the growls came from. He stepped slightly forward, putting himself between Lyra and the danger. Lyra could not believe it. No one had ever done that for her, not even her own mother or father. She felt her throat tighten, her small heart pounding. The first beast lunged. The human swung the stick with both hands, striking the creature on its side. A loud crack echoed in the night, and the beast yelped, rolling back into the grass. The others hissed and snarled, anger filling the air. Lyra gasped. This human was not as strong as her people, but he fought with fire in his eyes, not fear. He stood tall, shouting strange words she could not understand, but the meaning was clear. He would not run. Another beast leaped, but the human dodged, quick and sharp. He smashed the stick across its head. Blood sprayed on the leaves, and the creature fell with a whimper. The rest of the pack growled louder, but none rushed in yet. They circled like hungry shadows, waiting for the right moment. Lyra's small body shook, but something inside her shifted. She had always thought of herself as weak, useless, abandoned. But when she looked at the human, she felt a spark. If he, a stranger, could stand against death for her, maybe she should not give up either. She bent down, grabbed a sharp stone from the ground, and held it tight in her claws. It was small, but it was something. She whispered, "I will fight too." The human glanced back at her for a brief second, his eyes locking on hers. She thought she saw surprise there, but also approval. He gave a small nod before turning back to the beasts. The pack finally attacked together. 3 shapes darted in from different sides. The human swung his stick, knocking one back, but another slammed into his leg, biting down. He cried out, pain twisting across his face. Lyra's heart almost stopped. Without thinking, she rushed forward, stabbing the sharp stone into the beast's eye. The creature howled and released the human's leg, thrashing in pain before fleeing into the dark. Lyra stumbled back, panting, her claws red with blood. The human stared at her, his chest heaving, then gave her a quick smile. He said something in his strange voice, softer this time, almost like thanks. Lyra didn't understand the words, but she felt the warmth in them. The remaining beasts hesitated. Their leader, a massive creature with scars across its snout, growled deeply. But the smell of blood, both theirs and their prey's, made them uneasy. After a tense moment, the leader snarled one last time and slowly backed away. The rest of the pack followed, vanishing into the dark forest. The clearing grew silent again. Only the sound of Lyra's quick breathing and the human's heavy steps filled the air. The human lowered his stick and looked at his leg, where blood ran down into the dirt. Lyra's ears twitched as she stepped closer. She had no training in healing, but she couldn't just stand there. She tore a strip from her thin blanket and pressed it against his wound. The human flinched at first, but then stayed still, letting her tie the cloth around his leg. His eyes softened as he watched her small claws work carefully. For a moment, they were no longer strangers. Lyra finally whispered, her voice low and shaking, "Why?" Of course, he did not understand her words, but she still asked. Why did he help her? Why did he fight for someone he had never met? Someone even her own kind had thrown away. The human simply looked at her, his lips pressing together, his eyes gentle. He placed a hand on his chest, then slowly touched her shoulder. She froze, stunned by the gesture. It was not rough, not mocking, not cruel. It was kind. No one had ever touched her like that. She felt her throat tighten again, but this time not from fear. The night grew colder. The human glanced at the forest around them and then back at her. He pointed to a cluster of tall rocks nearby, as if suggesting they move there for safety. Lyra nodded quickly. She followed him, staying close, her small steps hurrying to keep up with his longer stride. They sat under the rocks, the second moon glowing above them. The human rested his back, his stick across his knees, and closed his eyes for a moment. Lyra sat beside him, hugging her knees, her claws still stained with beast blood. She should have felt terrified. She should have run far away. But instead, she felt safe. Safer than she had ever felt among her own people. Her mind filled with questions. Who was he? Where had he come from? Why had fate brought him? Where tonight, when she needed someone most, she looked at him, this strange human with pale skin and tired eyes, and for the first time in her life, She wondered if maybe she wasn't meant to be alone after all. The forest still whispered with danger, but under those rocks, with him sitting near, Lyra's heart finally rested. She was no longer just an outcast in the dark. She was someone a stranger had chosen to protect, and that to her felt like the beginning of something she had never dared to dream. Hope. The forest did not stay quiet for long. Even after the beasts had run, the night carried uneasy sounds. The air felt heavy, like the trees themselves were watching. Lyra sat close to the human, her small arms wrapped tight around her knees. She thought maybe the danger was over, but deep inside she knew the hunt had only just begun. The human rested against the rocks, his wounded leg wrapped with her blanket strip. His eyes stayed half open, scanning the shadows as if expecting another attack. Lyra admired his alertness. Her people would have left her to die, but this stranger fought for her and still kept watch. She whispered softly in her own tongue, "Why do you not leave me?" Of course he could not understand. Still saying the words made her chest ache less. The forest answered her with another sound, a long howl in the distance. It was deeper than the night beasts they had fought. A leader's call. The pack had not given up. They had gone to gather more. Lyra's sharp ears twitched. She stood quickly scanning the dark. "They come back?" she muttered in fear. The human watched her, then followed her gaze into the forest. His jaw tightened. He pushed himself up, wincing at the pain in his leg but refusing to sit idle. He picked up his wooden stick, then began to move around the rocky clearing. Lyra tilted her head, confused. He broke smaller branches, placed stones in small piles, and dug shallow lines in the dirt with his stick. She realized he was preparing something. Traps. She stepped closer, her small claws curling nervously. She had seen humans only in stories told by her people, stories of weakness and strangeness. But now, watching him, she saw cleverness. He was not as strong as the tall aliens of her tribe, but his mind worked like fire. Quick, bright, dangerous. The human pointed to her, then to the stones. He mimed throwing. Lyra blinked, then nodded slowly. She understood. He wanted her help. For the first time, someone needed her. Her chest warmed, and she hurried to collect stones, stacking them where he had shown. Together, silently, they worked. The forest grew louder with howls, closer now, but neither gave up. When the last trap was ready, the human gave her a short nod, his face serious but calm. Then the growls returned. Yellow eyes appeared between the trees again, more than before. The pack had doubled, maybe tripled. Their leader, larger and darker than the rest, stepped forward with slow, confident steps. Its teeth gleamed in the moonlight. Lyra's throat went dry. She had no family, no tribe, no warriors to protect her. But tonight she had this human, and strangely that felt stronger than all the others put together. The beast charged. The first rushed straight into a trap, a hole covered with leaves, and fell with a loud yelp. Another beast leaped forward, but the human swung his stick, knocking it aside, then pushed a stone pile, sending rocks crashing down onto another. The pack howled in anger. Lyra's claws trembled, but she remembered his signal. She grabbed a stone and threw it at a beast creeping from the side. It struck its snout, and the creature hissed, backing away. Her chest filled with pride. Her throw had worked. The leader roared and attacked. Its huge body slammed against the human, almost knocking him over. His stick cracked under the weight, snapping in half. Lyra screamed, thinking it was the end. But the human rolled aside, quick as lightning, and drove the broken end of his stick into the beast's shoulder. The leader howled in fury, thrashing, but the wound slowed it down. The smaller beast circled again, afraid but loyal to their leader. Lyra grabbed another sharp rock, ready to fight. Fear no longer ruled her. For the first time, she felt something different. Courage. Not borrowed, but her own. The battle raged on. Stones flew, claws slashed, teeth snapped. The human fought like a cornered wolf, using every trick, every trap, every ounce of strength. Lyra fought beside him, her small frame darting through the chaos, striking where she could. Together they drove the pack back inch by inch. Finally, the leader gave a furious roar and limped away into the trees. The rest followed, vanishing once more into the shadows. Silence returned. The clearing was a mess of broken branches, scattered stones, and blood on the grass. Lyra's small body shook, but her eyes shone with fire. She had fought. She had stood her ground. And the human, he had not let her fall. They both collapsed against the rocks, breathing hard. The human's face was pale, his leg bleeding again, but his eyes still carried that unbroken flame. He looked at her, sweat dripping down his brow, and gave a faint smile. Lyra froze, then slowly smiled back. Small, fragile smile, but real. She whispered, "You are not like them. You are not like my people." Of course, he did not understand her words, but something in his eyes told her he felt the same. Above them, the moon shone brighter, as if the sky itself watched over the strange pair, an outcast alien girl and the human who refused to abandon her. But deep inside the forest, the growls had not ended. Something larger, something far more dangerous than the pack, stirred awake. The hunt was not over. It had only just begun. The forest grew silent again after the battle, but it was not a peaceful silence. It was heavy, waiting, like the pause before a storm. Lyra sat under the rocks, her claws still trembling, her body aching from the fight. The human leaned against the stone wall, breathing hard, his leg wrapped again with the torn cloth, his stick broken into 2 pieces beside him. The night was colder now. A thin mist drifted across the ground, and the silver leaves whispered with every small breeze. Lyra hugged her knees and stared at the ground. She had fought. She had thrown stones. She had stabbed with claws. For the first time in her life, she had not run. But courage brought with it something else. Memory. Painful, sharp memories she had buried for so long. She looked at the human. He was watching her too, his eyes steady and kind, though she knew he could not understand her words. And yet something inside her needed to speak. Her voice was quiet, shaking as she whispered, "Do you know why they left me? Do you know why I am alone?" The human tilted his head, listening. He could not answer, but he stayed silent, giving her space. That alone felt strange. Her own people never let her speak. Lyra took a deep breath. "I was born wrong," she said softly, her eyes on her small hands. "My kind are tall, strong. Their arms can break stone, their claws cut through wood. But I was born small, too small." Her chest tightened. She remembered the looks of disgust, the whispers, the way the elders had shaken their heads when they saw her. She remembered the coldness of her mother's eyes, the way her father had walked away. "They called me a curse," she whispered. "They said I was proof of weakness. They said if I lived among them, the tribe would lose its honor." Her claws dug into the dirt, leaving thin lines in the ground. So they laughed. They pushed. They left me behind. She swallowed hard, her throat burning. All I ever wanted was for someone to hold me just once, to say I was not nothing, but no one ever did. Her words cracked at the end, and she turned her face away, ashamed of the tears shining in her eyes. She hated showing weakness. Weakness was why she was alone. The human shifted slightly. He placed a hand on his chest, then slowly leaned forward and touched her shoulder with the gentlest of motions. His hand was warm, steady. Lyra froze. Her breath caught in her throat. It was the touch she had dreamed of her whole life. Not cruel. Not mocking. Not pushing her away. It was kind. Real. Her eyes widened and her tears finally fell, but they were not the same tears of shame as before. They were something new. Something lighter. The human spoke softly. Words she could not understand, but the tone was calm. Almost like a promise. She pressed her claws to her chest and whispered back, "Thank you." For a moment, under the glowing moons, it felt like she was no longer a mistake. No longer Minnie. She was just Lyra, and that was enough. But peace did not last. From far away, deep in the forest, a sound rose. A rhythm, steady and strong. Drums. Lyra's ears twitched sharply. Her eyes widened in fear. She knew that sound too well. The tribe. Her tribe. She shot to her feet, trembling all over. "No," she whispered. "Not them. Not now." The human stood too, wincing at the pain in his leg. He followed her gaze, alert and ready. The drums grew louder, echoing through the silver trees. Shadows moved between the trunks, tall and broad figures carrying spears that glinted in the moonlight. Voices rose with the drums, harsh and angry, chanting words of strength and honor. Lyra's heart sank. She knew what they would say if they saw her. They would mock her again, call her worthless, and spit at her feet. And if they saw her with a human, it would be worse. Much worse. Her claws shook as she looked at him. The only one who had protected her. The only one who had listened. She whispered urgently, "You must go. If they find you with me, they will kill you." The human frowned, not understanding her words but catching the fear in her voice. He shook his head firmly. He did not move. "No," she begged, her voice breaking. "Please, they will not stop. They will hurt you. They will hurt me." But the human stayed still, his eyes filled with that same stubborn fire she had seen when he faced the beasts. He was not going to leave. Not for the tribe. Not for anything. The chanting grew louder. The first of the tall figures stepped into the clearing, their scaled bodies shining in the moonlight. Their eyes fell on Lyra first and narrowed in disgust. Then they shifted to the human, and their faces twisted into rage. Lyra's heart pounded. She wanted to run. She wanted to hide. But then she looked at the human, standing there beside her with no fear in his eyes, and for the first time she thought, maybe she did not have to run anymore. The tribe's leader stepped forward, raising his spear. His voice boomed, filled with anger. "The cursed one lives. And now she walks with an outsider." The rest of the tribe shouted in agreement, their spears slamming against the ground. Lyra's claws dug into her palms. The night beasts had been terrifying, but this was worse. Facing the ones who had abandoned her, facing the truth of who she was. And yet, as she stood trembling, she felt the human's hand rest gently against her back. She turned her head slightly, meeting his eyes. He gave her a small nod, steady and certain. For the first time in her life, Lyra did not feel like running. For the first time, she felt like fighting. The silver forest echoed with the heavy beat of drums. Tall shadows stepped out from between the glowing trees one by one, their scaled bodies glistening under the twin moons. Spears gleamed in their hands and their eyes burned with the fire of old hate. Lyra's breath caught in her throat. She knew these shapes too well. Her tribe, the same tribe that had left her behind, the same voices that had mocked her since she was small. Now here they were, standing before her once again. The leader was the first to step forward. His body was massive, twice as tall as the human standing beside Lyra. His scales were dark green, ridged with scars from battles past. His yellow eyes landed on her, filled with disgust. "The cursed one," he growled. Still breathing. The tribe behind him hissed in agreement. Their chants rolled through the night, words of shame and anger. Lyra trembled, but she did not step back. Not this time. The leader's gaze shifted to the human. His face twisted with fury. "And what is this? A stranger? A weak off-world creature standing with you? You shame us further, girl. You dare return to us with an outsider at your side?" The human didn't understand the words, but he understood the tone. He straightened his back, his jaw set. Even wounded, he stood tall and unbroken, his presence like stone before a storm. Lyra whispered under her breath, "Please, don't fight them. They will kill you." But the human didn't move. His eyes stayed fixed on the leader, steady as fire. The tribe parted, making a circle around them. Spears pounded against the earth in rhythm with the drums. Dust rose from the ground and the sound of hatred filled the clearing. The leader stepped closer, his voice booming. "You are nothing, girl. You always were. We cast you out so our tribe could remain strong. And now you prove us right by hiding behind this outsider. You are weak. He is weak. Together you are nothing." The words struck her like knives. She had heard them all before, spoken 100 times since she was born. But this time, when her claws dug into her palms, she felt something different. The sting was there, yes, but it did not break her. Not while the human was standing beside her. Her voice trembled, but she forced it out. "I am not nothing." The tribe went silent for a heartbeat. Shock rippled through their ranks. She had never spoken back before. The leader snarled, "You dare speak to me? You the smallest of us all? You who were left to the forest beast to die?" He raised his spear high. "You should not exist." The human stepped forward. His hand reached out, pulling Lyra gently behind him. His chest rose with each heavy breath. His wound still bleeding under the cloth, but his eyes blazed like a warrior ready to face 1,000. He shouted in his strange tongue, words filled with fire, and then jabbed a finger at the leader as if to say, "She does exist, and I will protect her." The tribe roared with anger. The sound shook the clearing. The leader lifted his spear and slammed its butt into the ground. "Then let him prove it." His voice thundered. "If this outsider wishes to stand with the cursed one, let him face the trial of strength. Let him fight for her life. If he survives, we will let them go. If he fails, his eyes narrowed. Both will die. The crowd cheered, their voices rising like a storm. Spears rattled, scales clashed. The words of death filled the air. Lyra's small body shook. She looked up at the human, eyes wide with fear. No, she whispered. You can't, they will kill you. You can't win. But the human only looked at her, calm and unshaken. He placed a hand gently on her shoulder. His lips curved in the smallest of smiles, and though she couldn't understand his words, his eyes told her everything. I will not leave you. Her heart twisted. Her people had abandoned her, called her curse, left her for beasts. But this stranger, this human, had chosen to stay. The tribe pulled back, forming a wide circle. Drums pounded harder, faster. Torches were lit, firelight flickering against the dark trees. The trial ground was ready. The leader stepped back and roared, "Bring the challenger!" From the other side of the circle, two warriors dragged a massive creature into view. It was chained, snarling, its scales black as night, its eyes burning red. Lyra's blood ran cold. It was a war beast, bred for combat, its claws longer than swords, its fangs dripping with venom. She shook her head violently, whispering in terror. No, not this. Not against that. The human clenched his fists, staring at the beast. His face was pale, but his resolve did not break. He limped forward into the circle, his broken stick still gripped in his hand. The tribe cheered louder, eager for blood. Lyra pressed her claws against her mouth, tears burning her eyes. She wanted to scream, to beg, to throw herself in front of him, but she could see it in his eyes. He had already decided. He would face whatever came. The leader grinned, his teeth sharp as daggers. Let the trial begin. The chains were released. The beast roared, shaking the earth as it charged, and the human stood his ground. Lyra's claws dug deep into the dirt, her heart hammering like a drum. She whispered through her tears, "Please, don't let him fall, please." The night burned with firelight, filled with the cries of warriors and the thunder of claws. The human and the beast rushed toward each other, and the trial began. The ground shook as the war beast charged forward, its claws tearing the dirt, its red eyes locked on the human. The tribe roared in excitement, their spears clashing against the earth like thunder. Lyra stood just outside the circle, her small body trembling. Her claws dug into her arms as she whispered over and over, "No, please don't let him die." The human did not run. He gripped the broken stick in his hand, his eyes sharp, his body tense like a bowstring ready to snap. His wound bled, but his spirit did not bend. The beast lunged, its massive jaws snapping shut where the human had stood. At the last second, he rolled to the side, dust rising behind him. The crowd jeered, laughing at the human's small frame compared to the monster's size. But Lyra's heart skipped. He was not weak. He was fast. The beast turned, snarling, and charged again. This time, the human didn't dodge far. Instead, he swung his broken stick into the beast's snout with all his strength. The crack echoed, making the creature flinch back in surprise. The crowd gasped. No alien had expected him to strike so boldly. The leader narrowed his eyes. His voice rumbled. He cannot last long. But Lyra felt hope flicker inside her chest. The human wasn't fighting like her people. He didn't try to overpower the beast. He was using his mind. The beast attacked again, claws slashing. The human ducked under its swipe, then grabbed a burning torch from the circle's edge. Firelight flared, and the beast hesitated, growling at the strange flame. The crowd's laughter stopped for a moment. The human waved the torch, keeping the fire between himself and the beast. Then, with a sudden move, he threw the torch into the beast's face. The creature roared, blinded for a heartbeat. The human rushed forward and jammed the sharp end of his broken stick into its leg. Blood sprayed as the beast howled in pain. The tribe shouted in shock. This was no coward's fight. The human fought with cunning, each move chosen with care. Still, the beast was huge, and rage made it wild. It slammed its tail against the ground, knocking the human off his feet. He hit the dirt hard, gasping, but rolled just in time to avoid the beast's crushing jaws. Dust filled the air, sparks from fallen torches flickered, and the trial ground became chaos. Lyra's throat tightened. She wanted to rush in to help him, but the circle of warriors kept her back. Her claws shook as she shouted in her own tongue, "Fight, please! Don't give up!" The human's eyes flicked toward her voice for just a second. Then he pushed himself up, his face set with determination. He moved differently now, slower but smarter. He stayed close to the beast's legs, never giving it space to use its full power. Every strike he made was not against its thick hide, but its weak points, eyes, joints, underbelly. The beast grew frustrated, roaring louder each time it missed him. The crowd began to murmur. Warriors exchanged uneasy glances. They had expected a short show of blood, not this dance of survival. At last, the beast lunged again, jaws wide. The human grabbed another torch, leapt aside, and shoved the flame deep into its open mouth. The creature screamed, thrashing violently, its roar shaking the trees. The human stumbled, nearly falling, but used the chance to grab a heavy rock from the ground. With all his strength, he smashed it against the beast's wounded leg. The limb buckled. The beast collapsed, crashing into the dirt. Dust rose in a choking cloud covering the circle. When it cleared, the human stood, panting, his chest heaving, his face covered in sweat and blood. The beast lay groaning on the ground, beaten but still alive, unable to rise. The circle fell silent. Every alien eye was on the human. He raised his broken stick, then dropped it onto the ground. He did not strike the final blow. Instead, he turned his back on the fallen beast, refusing to kill it. His eyes swept across the tribe, his expression calm as if saying, "I have proven myself. I need not prove more." The silence stretched. Then slowly voices rose, whispers at first, then louder. Some shouted in anger, but others muttered in awe. The leader's jaw tightened. His plan had been to humiliate the outsider, to destroy him in front of all. But instead, the human had shown courage none of them could deny. Lyra's eyes burned with tears. She pressed her claws against her mouth, shaking with relief. She had never felt pride before. But now, watching him stand tall, she felt it bursting in her chest. The leader growled, raising his spear. "This is not finished. No outsider shames us and walks free." His voice roared above the crowd. But before he could strike, the human stepped forward, limping, his eyes locked on the leader. He spoke loudly in his strange tongue, his tone fierce, his voice echoing through the clearing. No one understood his words, but they carried weight, power, and defiance. Lyra whispered, translating softly to herself. "He says, 'She is mine to protect, and I will not leave her.'" The tribe gasped at her words. The leader's eyes blazed with rage, but his hand trembled on the spear. Around him, murmurs grew louder, some voices of doubt, others of respect. The human had not only survived the trial, he had changed something in the air, something in the hearts of those watching. But Lyra knew the leader would not stop. His pride was too deep, his hate too sharp, and she knew the final storm was still coming. The clearing burned with firelight, the fallen beast groaning weakly on the ground, the human standing tall despite his wounds. The tribe had gone silent, their chants replaced by whispers, their eyes wide with confusion. They had expected the outsider to die. Instead, he stood alive, stronger than their pride could accept. The leader's face twisted with rage. His claws tightened around his spear until it cracked. His pride, built on fear and cruelty, had been wounded deeper than any scar on his body. "No!" he roared, his voice shaking the trees. "This is not victory. This is trickery. He does not belong here. Neither does she." He pointed his spear at Lyra, who stood frozen at the edge of the circle. "The cursed one. You dare to speak, you dare to return, and now you dare to bring shame to us all?" His voice dripped with hatred. "There will be no mercy. Tonight both of you die." Gasps rippled through the tribe. Some warriors stepped back, uneasy, but others slammed their spears against the dirt in agreement. The human did not flinch. He limped forward, his body battered, his stick broken, but his eyes burned like fire. He raised his chin and faced the leader head-on. Even without words they could understand, his defiance was clear. "If you want her, you must go through me." The leader roared and charged. His spear thrust forward like lightning, aimed at the human's chest. Lyra screamed, "No!" Her claws reached out as if she could stop the strike with her voice alone. But the human moved. At the last second, he twisted his body, the spear grazing his side instead of piercing his heart. He grabbed the shaft with both hands, using the leader's momentum to yank it downward. The two struggled, the leader towering over him, scales gleaming, strength like a mountain. The human's arms trembled, his wound bled freely, but his grip did not loosen. The tribe erupted into chaos. Some shouted for the leader, others cried out in disbelief. For the first time, cracks showed in their unity. The leader lifted his knee and slammed it into the human's stomach, knocking the breath from him. The spear ripped free, raised high again. Lyra's chest felt like it would burst. She could not stand by any longer. Her small body darted forward quicker than anyone expected. She leapt at the leader, her claws slashing across his face. A line of blood opened on his cheek and he roared in shock. The human used that moment. With a final burst of strength, he shoved the spear aside and drove his broken stick into the leader's chest. The wood snapped deeper with the force, knocking the massive alien back. The leader stumbled, his roar turning into a cough, and then collapsed onto the dirt. The circle went dead silent. Every eye turned to the human, who stood panting, blood soaking his side, his hand still gripping the broken stick. Then they turned to Lyra, small and trembling but unbroken, standing at his side. For the first time in her life, the tribe looked at her not with disgust but with something else, shock, doubt, and, in a few eyes, respect. The leader groaned on the ground, defeated but alive. The warriors hesitated, unsure whether to raise their spears or lower them. The drums had stopped. The fire crackled in the silence. Then slowly the human dropped the stick and turned to Lyra. His arms opened, weak but steady. She stared for a moment, her small heart pounding. Then she rushed forward, throwing herself into his embrace. For the first time she was held. His arms wrapped around her, strong even in weakness, warm even in pain. Her claws clutched his torn shirt, her face buried in his chest as tears streamed down her cheeks. She whispered through sobs, "I am not nothing, not anymore." The human said words she could not understand, his voice low and gentle, but she didn't need translation. She felt their meaning in his arms. "You are not alone. You will never be alone again." Around them, the tribe stood frozen. Some warriors lowered their spears, their faces softening. Others looked away ashamed. The silence stretched until one of the older warriors spoke, his voice rough. Perhaps the cursed one is not cursed. Perhaps she has found her strength." The murmur spread. Not all agreed, but none dared challenge after what they had witnessed. The leader lay broken on the ground, unable to rise, his power slipping away. The firelight danced on his face, showing not strength but fear. Lyra pulled back slightly, looking up at the human. His eyes were tired, his skin pale, but his smile, small and real, was for her alone. She gripped his hand tightly, her voice clear for the first time. "You are my tribe now." The words echoed in her own ears, and for the first time they felt true. The night air was cool, carrying away the smoke of battle. The drums no longer pounded. The tribe no longer shouted. Only silence, broken by the soft sound of her tears and the steady heartbeat she felt against his chest. The outcast had found her place, not in the arms of her own kind, but in the arms of the one who refused to let her go, and no force in the world, beast or tribe, would take that from her again.